Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of Philipstown will conduct a public hearing on May 2nd, 2019 at the Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, New York, at 7:15 p.m. in the evening of that day upon the enactment of a local law establishing a 6-month moratorium on the submission and processing of applications for land use approvals for vape shops within the town of Philipstown.
Okay, thank you. No, that's fine. You know, there's a copy of the law in the clerk's office, so anyone who wants one can easily access one. Everybody, this is a continuation of something we had adopted 6 months ago, or maybe longer, maybe almost a year ago now, right?
It's
Yeah.
definitely over 6 months, yeah.
Yeah, so we're still grappling with what we're going to do with other things. Any comments from the public? Oh, well, you're welcome. Agreed. Anything from the board?
Nothing.
Well, with that, I would make a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
We gotta wait.
Okay.
All right, Teresa, go ahead.
Okay, notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of Philipstown will conduct a public hearing on May 2nd, 2019 at the Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, New York, at 7:30 in the evening of that day to answer any questions and take comments on the Stormwater Management Annual Report. A copy of the draft report is on file in the town clerk's office.
Okay, this is something we required by the DEC to do every year. We submit a report on stormwater. It's done by the Conservation Board and Max Garfinkel. We appreciate that in conjunction with Councilman Leonard, who is a great assistant to them. Is there any questions regarding stormwater? Don't do it. Good, then. What, you have a statement, some kind of proclamation?
Bring it up in my report. It's about the recent CFA funding announcements, and there are possibly.
Well, maybe you want to make this announcement during your report. A good idea.
I think that's the right approach.
Yep. We appreciate the Conservation Board's work on this and Councilman Leonard's work on this. It's a lot of work every year.
Yeah, I mean,
Document the
Carl
whole thing.
Fasender's on it as well.
Yeah.
Over 600 outfalls are cleaned every year. The employees, the highway department is trained. There's now educational information up online for people to educate themselves on it. Obviously, beginning next month, is hurricane season begins, so cleaning out all the drains and everything is very critical for us to be ready in case we get hit, so.
Also,
I noticed
yeah.
on some of the catch basins, there's a tag on them now. Is
Yeah,
that,
there's hundreds of them out there now. We made sure we did everything in the MS4 area, which is Continental Village, and then we expanded out into the town, and we'll continue until we get every one of them done.
Yeah, because I noticed quite a few of them.
Yep.
And is that part of this program?
Yes, because there's people here, especially people from the cities, think that our drains go to a sewage treatment facility like they do in the large cities, and they don't. They go right into our waterways, our wetlands, our river. So it's a reminder to people, please don't put anything down those.
Right, ultimately, anything you put down a storm drain in this area winds up in your drinking water. So if you don't want it in your drinking water, don't put it down the storm drain. All right, any other comments?
No, thank you, Mike, for your work on this,
Thank
you. Yeah.
the Conservation
Thank
Board.
you. Could I get a motion closing the public hearing on the stormwater annual report?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. If you'll join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Feels like it could be the July meeting, right? Welcome to the May meeting of the Philipstown Town Board. Review of the minutes, monthly town board meeting of April 4th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Weekly town board meeting of April 10th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Committee reports, Conservation Board.
Okay, the Conservation Board met on April 9th. A couple of applications were there. Repeat on 22 Hudson River Lane. This is about installing the gangway ramp there onto the river itself. Obviously, other state agencies that are involved are the DEC and then also the Army Corps of Engineers. There was some discussion in regards to how the floating dock's going in and all that. There will be 2 concrete anchor blocks that will stay in permanently. So those are obviously of most importance to evaluate. But pretty much the docks will be taken down annually, and then only those concrete blocks will remain. We also had a house, excuse me, let me just switch to that one, it's quicker. On 19 Lake Celeste Drive. This is an existing home. Approximately 30% of the home is in the wetlands. A lot of times people hear that we obviously talk to people about when they're going to build or they want to, start a construction job. It's very difficult to have an existing facility like this to be 1/3 inside the wetlands. So it does require the Conservation Board to work with the applicant. Hopefully they work well with you, and in this case they do. They're adding on a front porch. Also, an exterior to the existing bedroom was being added on to the side and the rear. But again, a discussion as to how much, ensure that, they do the best job they can, but you have to work with people who have pre-existing homes that way. So that's, I think, an important point to understand. And the Conservation Board works well with people like that. Lake Surprise was back. This was originally discussed for a couple of months. The big issue is they installed an unauthorized pipe, which was inside the 100-foot buffer, and it was in fact draining into the stream. So this was of concern. A lot of discussion went on about grass swales, and culverts and riprap near the drains and so forth. But the end of the discussion, obviously, it was determined that they were required to do erosion control weekly inspections, which they weren't doing, which they have to now do. The Conservation Board also wants them to hire an expert to deal with the timber rattler habitat, which is located next to this construction. Obviously, the DEC is of interest in that too, and they didn't, as of that meeting, give permission for the activity yet. But obviously, we always make sure that whatever actions we take is in conjunction with the DEC itself. The actual roadways, there were things that we discussed with them also that they need to take a look at now. This is the time of year that you have your best chance without a lot of cover yet, although that's quickly changing. Roadways to have no violations in themselves. We also want to make sure that their mapping includes vernal pools. This is seasonal waterways that can exist from time to time, and they come into play now. Wetlands, steep slopes. If they're going to do any tree removals, because a big concern also is any mud that could be going into the streams. And the applicant would like to leave what was the illegal pipe in, which flows to the stream. That is going to continue on as a discussion and see what actions or remediations that could occur that might make that palatable to be able to allow. And also, they will be performing additional site visits along with the wetlands inspector. And our next meeting will be May 21st, not the 14th, because of some scheduling issues with the wetlands inspector.
Thanks, Mike. Recreation.
The Recreation Commission met on April 30th, and it was reported that summer camp registration went well and all the camps are full and have waiting lists. The new online registration system is working well for the Philipstown Recreation Department, so we're pleased about that. It was also reported that the Depot Theater has its gala benefit on Sunday, May 5th, focusing on the theater's youth productions and honoring Dr. Peter Gergley. The benefit is from 4 to 7 p.m. on Garrison's Landing. The Depot has also received a $50,000 state grant to do some technical improvements, including lighting and audio and other improvements on the theater. The Friends of Philipstown Recreation Committee raised over $10,000 from the Castle to River Run races. There will be another race in the fall on October 19th. And the commission also discussed the solar proposal as well as the proposed community garden. And there was a discussion of the a needed priority in regrading, resodding, and watering the fields at Philipstown Park. We also have, happy to report that the Philipstown Recreation Department also has this new program in its summer brochure, which is the Philipstown Community Zach Care and Topfield Equestrian Center are collaborating to bring a program to families that will provide on-the-ground equine therapy to help families impacted by substance abuse. And families can look in the summer brochure and get additional details.
It was in the paper this week, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judy. Philipstown Communities That Care.
Danielle's not here, so I just wanted to report that she accepted an award from the Chamber of Commerce on behalf of the Philipstown Communities That Care Coalition, which was for the important work that the coalition is doing to assist families in our community. The coalition, as I just reported, is partnering with Topfield Equestrian Center, and they're also working on reaching more families in the community, and we are looking forward to additional information and resources in the community. The Chamber of Commerce, actually, some of the businesses at that event, I think you were at that event, Richard, and they have offered to assist the coalition, which is really good for Philipstown and all the families in need of services.
Well, she certainly does deserve an award for all the work she's doing. She's terrific. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Planning Board.
Okay, the planning board met April 18th, pretty full agenda. The first thing on the agenda was J-Mark Jewelry. They put an addition on the building back in December, right before the holiday season, in November, December timeframe anyway. They came to the board to get an approval of their ESCO return, which was completed and passed, so it's also on agenda tonight as well, to return their escrow. There was 2 public hearings held as well. Marara Grimm and Juby trustee piece of property, 977 East Mountain Road South. I reported on this last month. It's a lot line adjustment. There was no public comment at all. The public hearing was closed, and the board approved the lot line adjustment. Also, 657 Route 9D, Chris Buck, he's had an application before us and it's been approved. He had to come to the planning board for a couple amendments. Anyway, there was a public hearing as well. There was a few comments, but they were all positive comments that were made at the meeting that evening. Anyway, there was one public comment, a neighbor, that the new driveway they're putting in is a little bit concerned about the road and the drainage coming out, and also, I guess, the driveway's right coming out of her bedroom there, so she's asking for some type of screening to be placed, and I'm sure they're going to try to accommodate that request. The public hearing was closed, and that was the end of that request there. Old business, 1122 Route 9D Garrison, which is the golf station down on Route 9D in Nelson Lane. As I reported last month, they were trying to put a canopy up there, and as well as they want to expand their services to sell some used cars. They're looking at maybe to have some, sell 5 to 6 spots for used cars. Anyway, neither the applicant or the representative were in attendance. Ron Gainer reported that the site visit was conducted, and there was a bunch of neighbors that came out as well and voiced their concerns. Ron tried to reach the applicant representative, but was not able to, so no action was taken at all. So hopefully it'll show up in next month's planning board meeting. Hudson Highland Reserve, I haven't reported them in many months, as you know. That project's been probably 3 to 4 years ongoing. Anyway, they came to the meeting, and they presented their DEAF, which is a draft environmental impact statement. The board acknowledged this, and they will resume reviewing it on the May 16th meeting, which is next month. New business, 359 East Mountain Road South. The applicant is for a new modest home and garage for the pre-existing lot that normally wouldn't require to come to the planning board, but it's in a ridge line running through the frontage of the property. Those regulations specify it requires a planning board approval. The project was declared as a minor project. Site visit is scheduled for April 28th. At 9:30, project was referred to the ZBA for a rear yard setback variance as the house will be located in the rear yard setback in order to avoid regulations for the steep slopes. The project was declared an unlisted action. The project was referred to the fire company as well as the planning board, the county planning as well. The meeting was adjourned at 9:15. Next meeting will be May 16th, 2 weeks from tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Zoning.
Zoning, I attended the April 8th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. There was a public hearing held for Kristen Conley, Route 403 in Garrison. The public hearing was open. There was no public comment. The board did have some questions that they could not answer, and there was a few concerns about the septic in the wetland. So they continued the public hearing to the May 13th meeting, which will be the next meeting of the ZBA, May 13th at 7:30 here.
Thanks, John. Highway.
Highway. Philipstown Town Board, from Carl Presenda, work performed by the Philipstown Highway Department for the month of March. Potholes are an ongoing issue, especially after winter. Crews are out repairing these problems as quickly as possible. Bids went out for the Horton Road Bridge abutment. They will be opened this Thursday at 11 a.m. A sweeper truck was rented for a full month. This will allow crews to provide cleanup for winter salt, sand, and debris. Early April brought several new items to the Highway Department. Both were allocated in the 2019 budget and will be beneficial to the daily work of the highway crew. The 2018 Dodge utility truck with plow and a 24-inch planer for the Bobcat. Just before the Easter holiday, multiple large boulders were purposely positioned on Esselborn Road, and there is photos attached if anybody's interested. The question is why and by whom? This is extremely dangerous and against the law. If any vehicle would have hit these rocks, it would have created major damage. Crews removed the boulders. A letter has been written by the Putnam County Legislature to Governor Cuomo asking for reinstatement of the emergency winter recovery funds. The additional funds are critical for use to ensure the continued safety and functionality of our local transportation infrastructure on behalf of the traveling public. A supplemental capital budget may be considered before the legislature adjourns in June. For April, the Highway Department received 25 calls or faxes regarding road complaints and issues, and roughly $12,200 was spent on vehicle maintenance and repairs for the month of April. Submitted by Carl Frazenda, Highway Superintendent.
Thanks, John. Teresa, did we get any bids on the Horton Road job?
Yes, we got one bid.
One bid?
Yeah, I sent it out to you guys today.
Okay, great.
Yes,
And who,
Land Works,
who's
27.
got time to do this sort of thing?
I know, it's ridiculous, right?
Strange. Placing boulders on the road, big boulders.
Big
Yeah.
boulders. I mean, that took some effort to do
You had
this.
to have you had to have a machine.
Maybe, or you got a couple
Or
guys to
drag
roll them off.
This
if
one?
they're- It's possible they could have rolled it. If it was coming down and went off the side of the road possibly to get some momentum going, but still. It's
stop sign for east,
crazy.
not south.
Yeah, you don't roll any of that one. I mean, unless they were rolling from here. Ah, people, they'll never let you down.
I mean, you think about coming around the corner in the dark.
Yeah, sure.
You would have
Messed
told
your whole car up.
your car.
Your airbag would have went off.
Or a school bus.
Yeah.
A lot of geniuses out there. You gotta give it to them. All right, moving right along. Building and land, we are on the very cusp of letting the bid out for this building. We have one more meeting with the architects. Councilman Van Tassel and I have been meeting with the architects, but we're gonna go over the finalized plan and then the bid packet's going out. So we're gonna get a schedule together for moving people out of this building.
We're also meeting on Wednesday with the VFW board and their attorney about leasing space.
Right, so we have to start thinking about a moving company,
Yep.
what we're taking out, all those
Yeah, a
things.
lot of logistics. Like I said, I already called the phone company, networking people and so forth. Like, I gave them a heads up that's just coming. So we need at least 2 to 3 weeks notice before we can actually implement anything regarding what I just indicated.
It's also probably time to send around a notice to the employees.
Does anybody know this is good?
Well, you
Teresa-
never know, so.
Teresa knows because she's been here, but when I did mention it, several people really said, what? So, one day you'll come in, your desk won't be here, it'll be over. If your desk isn't here, I'm announcing, it'll be over at the American Legion.
See if you can find it.
Yeah, there might be a little confusion, but like the
I
first
think
day of school.
Once we meet with them on Tuesday and finalize, we could sit down with the.
Yeah, and
Game plan.
I think that Justin Caker, the architect, he had a timeline laid out for us, so we're figuring, I think it was early June.
Yeah, after Memorial.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's right around the corner, yep.
Yeah, it is right around the corner, so we do have to get on it. But that's the big news for now. Big things coming for the town hall. Cemetery committee.
Okay, the cemetery committee met on April 9th. We were able to provide at least some partial answers to two inquiries regarding families and their cemetery plots and so forth, so they were happy with that. But we just couldn't, we ran into a stone wall on both of them at certain points.
Oh,
It's
you up
very-
on Esselborn?
yeah, we ran into the rocks, yeah. If you take a look at the Cedar Street Cemetery, you're gonna see a lot of work happening right now. There's a lot of holes there now. We're not active again. Those are actually being dug deep because these require a good footing. So if you go by and you see that, that's what's happening there. Originally, we had decided we were gonna switch to the North Highlands Cemetery. However, the stonemason feels that he doesn't have large enough equipment. I'm probably gonna talk to Carl from the Highway Department, whether we might have to try to do a coordination. Probably won't happen till next year. But we're either gonna have to have him rent larger equipment for those that sit on that bluff there, or we're gonna have to try to do something if Highway has large enough machinery. So,
They got big machines.
yeah, so,
It's just a matter of getting it in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
get it in there itself, because they face off of Route 9. You can't obviously go from there because you'd be blocking half of Route 9 off. Yeah, so that will be very difficult, so that'll be a challenge. We've been cleaning up and renovating certain stones and so forth. We've kind of picked up ones where there's a lot of sayings on there because, again, which we've mentioned in the past, we eventually want to actually have a host where the county, we would actually be the ones handling all of the tours to our two cemeteries here in the village. And we will obviously want to have stories to be able to provide to people as they go around. So that's what we're looking to do right now. The sheriff's department had asked us to pick up a gravestone that they've had for many years there. It happens to be of an 18-year-old boy, but probably maybe worked in the foundry, because we don't know why really. They still have to provide us why they feel it belongs to Philipstown.
How did it end up in the sheriff's?
That we don't know yet. This is a real mystery. The boy came from Ireland. We have one person who's very good at research, and she believes that it's very possible the boy may have been sent back, his body sent back to Ireland. There's also, this is the Downs family, there's also connections to Connecticut. So it's possible that the boy's body was sent to Connecticut. So we're still researching that, but it's quite difficult to track down. But we don't obviously have a location here. We would work, of course, with any cemeteries in Philipstown, St. Philip's and so forth, if we determine that that's an issue for them.
The stone is actually in the,
It's been in the sheriff's office.
over here in Nelsonville?
No, the sheriff in Putnam County. It's
way
sitting
over
in
there,
Carmel,
okay,
yeah, and
okay.
they obviously would like to get rid of it. You know,
How large is it? Is it something that?
I've talked to the stonemason. I mean, he could pick it up. It's not that we can't pick it up, but there's no link really to us yet. They have to really. I think they're guessing that because of the time frame and everything, there were a lot of young people that came from Ireland that work in the foundry. So that's what I think the connection is, but that didn't mean that he actually physically ended up here in the end. So that's when you get into these research, it really gets deep into a lot that goes on, and the records are so minimal that you have to really dig hard. We are also going to, the committee and anyone that would like to, on Saturday, May 25th at 10 a.m., we will be meeting in the village, two cemeteries with the flags. We will also contact the scouts who helped us last year and hope that we'll be able to place them prior to the Memorial Day Parade.
What day is that?
That's Saturday, May 25th at 10:30 a.m. We actually have the duty to do these two here in the village. The vets handle the others. And our next meeting will be on May 21st.
Thank you, Mike. Butterfield Library.
The students who are interested, Butterfield has an opportunity for community service hours, and they can contact the library. The library will need help boxing up books for their upcoming renovation of the children's room. And the lower level of the library will be closed during the renovation. So any students that would like to help with that, please contact the library. We are also, the library is pleased to announce a new service, auto renewal, which was turned on in May, and items checked out at the library, including Desmond Fish, will automatically be renewed if no one is waiting to borrow it. And the library has also an express checkout station for patrons that prefer a quick checkout. Patrons picking up holds must use the regular checkout. Butterfield Library also has a mobile app which will be available this month. It will make it easier to navigate their website from your mobile device. Day trips to New York City and area museums are available to borrow, including the Empire Pass from New York State and passes to the Mohonk Preserve. The library's walking history tours are back this summer. Check out the library's website, butterfieldlibrary.org, for dates. The Butterfield Library also has power washers, leaf blowers, yard tools, humane traps to help patrons with their spring cleanup, so please contact the library if you would like that assistance. And the library added a mobile hotspot to their collection. It's very popular, and the library plans to add 2 more hotspots. In addition to the hotspots, the library will now loan laptops to patrons. Persons under the age of 18 years old will need their parent or guardian to complete a form before borrowing a laptop or a hotspot. Contact the library for more information at jbldirector@gmail.com or 845-265-3040.
Thanks for that report, Judy.
And Putnam County Legislature. I did not put
I
on.
got her on here.
Okay, sorry about that.
Putnam County Legislator Nancy Montgomery, please step to the podium.
First, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to use this space to meet with constituents and different organizations. I've had a lot of work this month in particular. You know, one John brought up in the highway report. I initiated a resolution to the legislature to send to the state to restore that emergency winter recovery funding. Philipstown alone stands to lose $26,000, Cold Spring over $7,000, and Nelsonville over $2,000. The county over $111,000, and each town in the county stands to lose a great deal if they don't restore that funding. And it was important to get that resolution in quickly because the state legislature leaves in June, so we wanted to get it in. And I'll also be sending a personal letter from, being the representative of Philipstown and Putnam Valley to ask that they restore that funding. I did not attend the shared services meeting because I wasn't getting notices, but I've recently written a letter to, I'm going to be included on those shared services if you're okay with that. I'm over there anyway.
No, that would
I
be
don't
great.
have to
Thank you.
represent you, but I'm happy to.
No, you should.
And I'd like to be there. So I know there was recently one last Friday. I'll get the information of what was discussed in that, and I'll bring it to you. I just don't have it now. I went to the Food Operators Expo. It was really, really great. It's like, the only one of a kind, I think, in the state. Hundreds of food operators, lots of organizations from the area here being represented there. I just wanted to let you know that the county clerk is hosting an additional passport day this Saturday. They're just, adding a day before the busy summer months in case people are planning on traveling. So that's a great addition. You probably received notifications about the CFA consolidated funding announcements. That's what I was talking about when we were talking about stormwater management. There may be some resources. I'm sure Michelle will speak to the water quality initiatives that they have in that the projects that we might be eligible for as far as our little MS4. There's funding in there for salt storage and things that we can maybe tap into. As I said, I met with a number of different agencies this month. I met with Shakespeare, just trying to figure out how to collaborate with them in as far as tourism and through the MTA, getting them some presence in front of the MTA as far as maybe advertising, or they're looking for, access to Boscobel from maybe one of the train stations. There's a lot of, talk about what we can do to, bring more people to the Shakespeare Festival. I met with the Chamber of Commerce. They're really interested in making the trolley work better for them. I'm trying to get more information from county planning and transportation. I've written a letter to the county executive and the director of transportation to get that information to better help the chamber. I also met here with MISN Hudson Valley Navigator. This is a healthcare navigator, and I don't know if you recall, like 3 years ago, Judy came in with Linda Brady, who would like to come in again at some point when open enrollment happens. And she really, this is a great program. They provide free one-on-one assistance for people trying to navigate through that health insurance mess and getting people, covered. And we have talked about, how to reach out to the immigrant population and making sure they get the resources they need as well. I also met with Planned Parenthood, Amy Freer and Emily. We were talking about how to expand reproductive health services in Putnam County, especially on this side of the county. So look for that. They have a bus, that can come around and, provide education and prevention and health care. So I was really happy with that meeting. It looks like we're going to be able to do a lot of work. It's just, I've been doing a lot of work, and there's a lot that I met and talked about, and now it's time to implement it. Talk to you about the CFA, and one great highlight is that we were able to work together to find some office space for Danielle Pack McCarthy, and we're fortunate that Tim Miller and Associates donated that space for the time being, and I am really grateful that we have a space now where Danielle can meet with clients privately, and I'm really grateful to Tim Miller for doing that for this great cause. And I know Danielle's working hard to, really make this a solid program for Philipstown. So I really wanted to give a really quick, short report, but I really want to answer your question. Some tough things I have before me on the legislature. One you may have read about is the purchase of these Percheron horses. That vote's going to come up on Tuesday. I've been doing my due diligence and trying to find out what it really means. How much is it really going to cost us? What's the insurance implication? What's the contract? I don't have all of that information yet, but
What's the impetus behind that, purchasing horses?
well, the plan, which there is not really a document, a master plan for Tilly Foster. That's what I've asked for. There's a lot of documents and discussions that happened over the years that I wasn't involved with. So as I said to the legislature, I'm late to the game on that, and I need to know more. Quite honestly, I am leaning toward not voting to purchase these horses because we have essential services that we're sorely lacking, especially on this side of the county. So, people categorize things and compartmentalize them as this is for that, that's for this. I tend to look at it as the big picture, and when we can't get funding to, it's not even, we weren't even asking for funding to promote a deputy sheriff to sergeant because there was a plan to not create any new positions for this new year. And, as far as I'm concerned, these two horses are two new positions, maybe. It's the way I'm looking at it.
How much are they, do you know?
The cost of the horses is $5,000, which is
For the two of them?
for the two of them. They come as a team. They're beautiful. They're at the perfect age.
What are they going to do with them?
They're right now, well, that's what I want to know. There's a lot of talk about what they're going to do with them, but nothing is planned in contract or anything yet. They could be therapy horses. They could be used to go to parades.
And who's going to mean, the maintenance on the horse.
Yeah, once you buy a horse,
Well, that they
veterinary bills
they
on
gave us a
horses.
very detailed description about the maintenance, the vet bills, the cost of the hay. I mean, they did the highway crew did provide very detailed information, and the cost over the next 2 years was $37,000.
Yeah, we need that.
And
Good, solid investment. Oh, yeah.
you're being sarcastic.
I am. I am. That's
And-
absurd.
And I'm here telling you about it because I appreciate your input, and I want to tell you the way I'm leaning, and I think, as representatives of the town of Philipstown, I would like your input. If you want to talk to me more about it, if you have an opinion. I did make an appointment to go see these horses because I kind of want to see something if I'm going to agree to buy them. They assure me that the current owner is going to offer long-term support, through this purchase in training. They're not horses that need a lot of maintenance, and they're very gentle, large, gentle creatures. And I talk to people outside of the county who own these types of horses, and everything that the county is saying is what I validated with another farm owner, and it sounds like a beautiful deal, but quite honestly,
But the bottom line, what are they gonna be used for?
Well,
I mean, why
the
are we
farm,
buying horses
they-
when we can't get
there's-
an SRO? We won't support the business incubator in Philipstown, but we'll go buy 2 horses that are cost $37,500 in maintenance in 2 years. It's absurd.
I can tell you what they're going to be.
Ridiculous.
The idea to be used for. There is an animal science program through BOCES that they're suggesting they will be used for. I don't know enough about that program. I haven't seen the curriculum. I did call BOCES today, and I did write to the county executive to ask for the details about the animal science program. Again, used for parades and events, and also as an attraction basically for Tilly Foster, which is, it's become, a premier tourist attraction for Putnam County. No, but the consensus was, when they were planning Tilly Foster, was to bring back the horses, and this would help that process. But again, I love the horses. I'm a fan of PetFinder.com. Every day I look at it, but I can't buy something. As my late husband said, you don't buy something just because it's on sale. It seems like a beautiful thing and it's a good price, but over here we're sorely lacking in services. And
Yeah, they just turned down Carlos Salcedo for his business incubator, trying to, bring business right to this community. This great thing, a guy offering a building just needed a small, infusion of cash,
Right.
and we're going to put that cash into 2 horses. I mean, it's almost the same amount when it comes out to it.
I thought Carlos's was 60,000.
It's 50,000, so
Yeah.
37.5 and 5, and that's only in 2 years. But we're talking about a long-term investment with Carlos
Yeah.
and a long-term investment on horses.
No, I agree. I just wanted to bring it to your attention because I wanted you to know where I stood right now. But if you want to talk to me, try to change my opinion about how you feel. Right now, I'm leaning toward not appreciating this.
Yeah, I
and-
think it's a terrible idea.
Carlos's plan would create money.
Create jobs, create money, create revenue for the county, which we don't get back anyway. But
Well,
that's,
and we've created some really great programs here in Philipstown on our own with no resources, some essential services that we need. If Danielle's a good example.
Yeah, exactly.
And we would
programs
need
for seniors.
we would need more. I would like to support a program like that with $37,000.
Maybe the seniors can go ride the horses.
That's a good idea.
Yes.
Get a traffic light.
Traffic light. So not to belabor it, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Do you guys have any questions for me? Do you want traffic safety? I'm going to be writing a letter to you soon. I've already written it. I just haven't sent it, requesting that you recommend that I be appointed to the Traffic Safety Board.
Sure.
I'm there anyway.
You were on the board at one
I
point.
was, but I
For
think
an
when I got
alternate.
on the legislature.
I have resigned from the board because the meetings are at 3 in the afternoon or 3:30, and it's nearly impossible for me to get there.
Yeah.
It's convenient
on
for
a
the
normal-
working person.
Well, it's convenient for, and most of the board consists of police officers, so they're getting done at 3:30, finished, and they go right into, which I understand, but for me, it's nearly impossible, so.
And I don't know about you, and I'm sure it's the same with you guys. Whenever you're in front of Food Town or at a restaurant, somebody's coming to you with a traffic issue. Just tonight before I came here, somebody cornered me with, they want to address a traffic issue. So I'm happy to take all of those and bring them to the board.
And it worked. I
Great.
mean, that board has
Yeah.
done some great work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
really enjoyed being on it, but it's just inconvenient.
So look for that.
Terrific, thank
Okay,
you so
thank
much.
you.
Nancy, thank you for your
Thanks.
work with the Topfield Equestrian Center
Oh.
and facilitating the program.
Thanks.
And John McEnroe.
The monuments. I
Yes.
was astounded when I drove by. Thank you for that
Yeah, they look
idea.
great.
They
Yes.
look
They
really
really do
good.
look great.
I'm really happy that they're going to
The
be
work's completed,
done
so-
before Memorial Day, and what a great thing for the parade, and it'll look good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If only we had some horses for the parade. Michelle Smith, why don't you step up since we're recognized Michelle Smith? No, come on, let's, why wait till the end? You're welcome.
So, this actually, Nancy, was a good segue because she mentioned the grants, the CFA grants. So there's been actually a lot of state grants announced recently. There was the CFA grants, of which one of those is the WQIP, which is Water Quality Improvement Program, and there's a bunch of grants in there for all kinds of water issues and stormwater management. There's also the Hudson River Estuary Program just announced a new round of grants for municipal planning. So I'll come back to that in a second. And first to speak about a grant that we already have. It was a 2-year grant, and I think I came last year. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been here, but last year when the grants were announced from the Environmental Protection Fund, the Hudson Highlands Land Trust got one for a water study in Philipstown. So we hired Chase, and they've already done a whole bunch of mapping and analysis for us, which we're putting in a report. 2 of the focus areas that we have in Philipstown are Foundry Brook, which is obviously the Cold Spring water supply, and Clove Creek and the Clove Creek Aquifer. So in this year, it's a 2-year grant, so we're getting the funds. We should be getting soon the funds for this year. And what we want to use the funds for this year is we've actually hired a water testing company called Watershed Assessment Associates. And we're actually going to get out in both of those streams, in Clove Creek and in Foundry Brook, and start doing testing. Most of the testing, I mean, the chemical testing will just be things like, pH, temperature, various chemicals will be tested, but the main thing will be to test for macroinvertebrates. And macroinvertebrates are a good indicator of water quality because they don't want to live in a messy home. So if there's a problem area, they won't be there. So what we've actually got funding for is we've got funding for 3 points in both of those streams, so 6 points in total. One of the points in each stream is actually already predetermined, and the reason it's predetermined is that the DEC already does macroinvertebrate. I actually never even knew this, and I don't know if any of you did, but the DEC already does macroinvertebrate testing in Foundry Brook and Clove Creek, so there's already points. And so the one in Foundry Brook is just downstream of 9D, so it's not upstream of the water intake. So I think the other 2 points that we'll pick on Foundry Brook will be upstream of the water intake at the Cold Spring water plant. The one on Clove Creek is actually off Mill Road, just downstream from Horton Road. So we will pick those points because then we've got historic data that we can look at. And then I guess my question for you is, for anyone who wants to give input on this, I'm happy to take public input, is where the other 2 points on Clove Creek should be. Because, right now we've got one that's a little bit downstream of Horton Road, and there's a lot of things obviously that go on along Route 9. And actually, ideally, I'd love to have more than 3 points to test. I'd love to test kind of upstream, coming out of 301, and, you think that would be where the best water quality is. And I'd love to try and pinpoint where things start to deteriorate. One thing we might want to do is actually go north of Philipstown into Fishkill and test after it goes through the 2 mines, right?
Output, right.
Yes.
That would be our output, basically, yeah.
Yeah, well, and it also, that Clove Creek is running past all the mining activity, at along Route 9, the Montford and the Montford, whatever's going on at Montford and the Thale. So that's one thought, but then that leaves us only with 1 point left. So I'd love to get your input. I don't need it now, but I'd love to get people's input on where would be a good place. And the way that the guy who does this is all he does. Like, he knows the EPA and the DEC protocols, and he knows like exactly what to do. And they go into a lab and they look in a microscope and they figure out exactly what's in there, and that tells them what the water quality is like. The way that we access is we normally access off a road so that you're in a public right of way to get into the stream. If we need to, if we thought there was a great point, but we had to get access through private property, we'd have to obviously ask permission to do that. So that's the way that the DEC has their points now. And then for the other 2 points, ideally you'd have public access, but it's not essential if you really
To
thought
me,
a point was
to me, it would
important.
seem like somewhere along 301, so it would be the water coming into Philipstown.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Yeah.
even up by like Countryside Motel, which
Yeah.
would be basically where it's exiting Philipstown, would be
Yeah.
just to see what
Yeah,
what we're
I think that would be
contributing.
good. And then, what I'd love to do is figure out a way, because it's not cheap to do this testing, as you're probably aware. So that's why we only end up with the 3 points on each stream. But I'd love to figure out a way to use that to one, keep this testing going on, whether it's once a year or whether it's once every 2 years, so that as developments happen or things change, you can keep testing the water and really have an idea of what's going on. And the other thing is, it would be really interesting if you upstream, you think that's going to be good water quality. Right. The Horton Road area unclear, and then at the very end, you'd expect it. But then to be able to pinpoint, then within that to be able to pinpoint, what's causing the problems. I think it's a good start. So the idea here is to start something, and I have to figure out funding to keep it going for the next, to keep it going on an annual or every second year basis. But I do like that idea, and if anyone has any other ideas, we'd be happy to hear about them. So we're going to do a volunteer day. We already set the date for July 9th is the target day for testing. The budget with the vendor includes the training of 4 volunteers. So we picked some volunteers who've just had a real interest in Foundry Brook and Clove Creek. We've got 3 people who are sort of committed. I don't know if you're interested. I think you're not able to that day.
I don't know if I could do 5 hours of walking and
Yeah,
standing right now.
So if
'cause
you
of
know
the winds.
anybody, because a bunch of our volunteers are, they're passionate about Foundry Brook, but they're not so much about Clove Creek. So I'm looking for people who are like really passionate about Clove Creek. If you can think of anybody, I've got a couple of names, but if there's anyone you want me to reach out to, just because we have only the 4 people that can get trained in the budget. So I'll probably pick the 4 people and have a couple of reserves. And
You could put me on that list. I would be willing to do it.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I could walk pretty far.
So it's July 9, and then we're going to, in case the weather's really bad or something happens, then July 10 is our backup date.
Okay.
So July 9, I think, is...
10 to, it's 5 hours, 10 to 3.
I actually don't know how many hours. I just blocked it off on the calendar. I don't know how long it's going to take, and we'll do, there'll be we'll do one and then we'll do the other.
I'll do
and I'm
Clove
not
Creek's
sure.
kind of close to me. So.
Yeah, okay.
Goes right in my backyard.
All right, great.
Stop at Bob's.
Stop
Coffee.
for a drink.
Cool.
So keep you posted on that. And then at the end of this process, they do they do all the lab work kind of towards the end of the year. So we'll know the results should be by the end of the year or early next year, and how it compares to historic data that the DEC's already collected. So that's going to be really interesting. And then at the end of this project, so probably early next year, and we may even have some drafts by the end of the year, we will have a full report on the water study and what's happened. And then I know that Chazen is also working for the town, doing the update of the groundwater study. So I don't know how that's, I know he'd copy me in on a couple of emails, but I'll probably overlap with him on this testing issue. because the other thing we want to do is, if there are problem areas along both streams, is figure out where they are and what can be done about them. So that's another aspect of this project. But we will start having some draft reports of our findings, like I said, later this year, early next year. So that's that. And then I'll just talk briefly about grants. So the estuary program grants that were announced a couple of days ago, we will be applying for a grant in a section that's called connectivity planning. So as we already know, Philipstown, Putnam Valley, we already have a lot of conserved land, and what we would really like to focus on at the Land Trust in the next several years is less on more big chunks of conserved land, but just trying to be able to connect the conserved land that we do have, which is we're realizing for climate change, even for water issues, that's really important for wildlife to be able to move. And also, just for long distance trails and the quality of recreational experience around long distance trails. So we're going to be focusing more on connectivity, and we want to apply for a estuary program grant to help really with the planning and implementation of a connectivity plan. So we'll probably be coming before you in June for a letter of support for that grant. And I think that it's actually going to dovetail nicely with something that the Climate Smart coordinator needs to do, which is my understanding for the Climate Smart communities is they need to do a refresh of the open space inventory. So I'm going to speak to Roberto about this grant round and see how we might be able to overlap on that. And the estuary program loves any project that kind of overlaps with trying to achieve the Climate Smart community goals. So you'll be hearing about that probably at the next June, at the next monthly meeting. And I'll try and get you something in advance, sample letter of support. And I think that's all.
Michelle, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
We did do an update, or we had an intern do an update on the Open Space Index.
Yes, we did.
In
Yeah, that was
2016.
the first year I started, yeah. Yeah, so that was Nicole Padala did that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but there's something, I'm not sure if the Climate Smart Communities has another, there's something else that they have to do that's related to the
Yeah, I've been
objectives
talking to
of
Roberto about
climate.
it today.
Yeah,
so-
oh, yeah, okay. So I don't know if it might already be satisfied or there might be something else that has to be done. Plus there's a carbon inventory project that's going on in Philipstown that Jason and Jocelyn are involved in as well. And we are working with Roberto on that. And I think it might be interesting if we can incorporate that somehow into the open space inventory as well, which is basically saying what's the sort of carbon storage value of these, properties if they're not developed. Yeah. All right, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Just also to tail off to that, where Conservation Board is looking at testing in the southern end of town. We're working right now. I've talked to Yorktown Labs. There's a a contractor in Putt Valley who's offered assistance. He helps that town out. So we're going to take a look at what it would be involved and what's happening with Clove Creek and Cortlandt Lake, and also possibly one test that would go from the Ansville Creek into Peekskill, because that's the MS4, and we would like to at some point be able to see what kind of impacts we're having on those waterways as they come into our town and as they leave our town. So.
All right, thank you. Agenda.
First item on the agenda is a resolution appointing Crystal Ford as a member of the Conservation Board for a term expiring March 3rd, 2020.
All right, we conducted interviews for the Conservation Board. We had two terrific candidates. It was virtually impossible to choose between them, so we chose both of them, as you'll see in a moment. But we're happy to appoint Crystal Ford. Could I get a motion on that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you so much, Crystal Ford.
The second item on the agenda is a resolution appointing Anthony Dios as an alternate member of the Conservation Board for a term expiring March 3rd, 2020.
As I mentioned previously, Anthony Dios also interviewed virtually, equal qualifications, different strengths, but we didn't want to see this person get away. We want to get great people involved in town, and Anthony Dios certainly qualifies. So If I could get a motion on the resolution appointing Anthony Dios as a alternate member of the Conservation Board.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? And I vote aye.
Third item on the agenda is a resolution adopting Local Law 2 of 2019, establishing a 6-month moratorium on the submission and processing of applications for land use approvals for vape shops within the town of Philipstown. And this is a roll call vote. First, the negative declaration.
All right, we have the short form environmental assessment form that I'll be signing once we adopt this. Everybody's had a chance to look at this. This is sort of a rote piece of business that goes along with any local law, but this one especially. So if I get a motion adopting the short environmental assessment form.
So moved.
Roll call. Councilman Flaherty.
Aye.
Councilman Van Tassel.
Vote aye.
Councilman Leonard.
Aye.
Councilwoman Farrell.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
And the adoption of the local law, number 2, 2019.
We had a public hearing on this earlier. Whole lot of comment. But it's over now, so if I could get a motion adopting the local law number 2 of 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Councilwoman Farrell.
Aye.
Councilman Flaherty.
Aye.
Councilman Van Tassel.
Vote aye.
Councilman Leonard.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you.
Agenda item number 4, a resolution accepting the stormwater annual report for the town of Philipstown for 2019.
We also had a public hearing on this earlier, and at this point, I entertain a resolution accepting the stormwater annual report for 2019. Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. And our thanks to the Conservation Board for their work on that.
Agenda item number 5 is a resolution authorizing the release of escrow funds for J. Mark Jewelers.
As you heard in Councilman Flaherty's report earlier, that was okayed by the planning board, so if I get a resolution authorizing the release of those funds.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Agenda item number 6 is a resolution authorizing the Highway Department to auction off old equipment with Auctions International.
Okay. Does anybody have any reservations about this?
Not at all. And the equipment that's being auctioned off is itemized here, so we have a clear paper trail of where it's going and what we're getting for it.
Okay, terrific. Can I get a motion on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye, and we do have a clear list, so we'll know the disposition and the dollar amounts.
Agenda item number 7 is a resolution authorizing Supervisor Shea to sign the hold harmless indemnity agreement between Tim Miller Associates, Inc. and the town of Philipstown.
All right, our thanks to Tim Miller for offering this space for a really, really worthy cause, the Philipstown Communities That Care. I know it'll be great to have a segregated space for this and make people feel a lot more comfortable with using the services that we're able to offer at this time. So thanks, Tim Miller, really a genuine thanks from the entire board. Could I get a motion on the resolution authorizing me to sign the hold harmless agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody now. We have an addition here.
There's an additional item, a resolution for a parade permit for the Cannonball Scholarship Fund, which is scheduled for June 1st.
The Cannonball Scholarship.
Yeah, this is for Jim Cannon, who died a few years ago. They've been doing this for, I think, this might be their 3rd year now. They do a little parade, then they have like a softball tournament game they have played down there in Garrison.
We certainly are happy to support that.
Upper Station, right?
Yep,
Yeah, the field right there on Upper Station Road in 9D.
terrific. It's a great effort. Could I get a motion on the resolution approving the parade permit?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye. I also have a very late edition. I'm sorry, Teresa. I'll give you a copy of this. This is in relation to a stop work order that we have issued for the Ventura property at the end of Lane Gate Road. Stop work order was issued earlier this week and completely ignored. We have won every court case with respect to this issue. This is illegal processing. You can see it from outer space. It's just ridiculous at this point. But he shows no sign of stopping. He's completely flaunting the law at this point. So now we have to go to the heavy-handed action of getting a temporary restraining order, which is an injunction, which means we send the police there. So I want to get the board to authorize our attorney, Robert Chinque, Esquire of Gold Sand and Chinque, to make an application for a TRO injunction. Could I get a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And I vote aye.
How long will that take you know?
Should only take a couple of days. So by next week, we're gonna have action on it. Give that to Teresa.
Thank you.
I'll sign these.
Next item on the agenda are the code enforcement monthly reports. For the town of Philipstown, fees collected $32,819. Total number of permits issued 37. New 1 or 2 dwellings 1. New commercial industrial buildings none. Additions, alterations, or repairs residential buildings 8. Alterations, repairs in commercial buildings 1. All other permits, pools, sheds, decks, plumbing, HVAC, 28. Number of certificate of occupancies, 29. Number of stop work orders, 2. Inspection of public assembly, 1. Inspection of commercial occupancy, 1. And then there's a note at the bottom from Greg that says, when hiring contractors to work on your home, be sure they have a Putnam County home improvement license. They should provide you with a copy. The report for the Village of Cold Spring, fees collected $24,912.50. Total number of permits issued 8. New multifamily occupancies 1. Additions, alterations, or repairs residential buildings 5. Additions, alterations, or repairs for commercial buildings 2. Number of certificate of occupancies 3. Operating permits issued 1. And a note that says, please remember to apply at Village Hall for project permits.
Thanks to Greg Warner for that report. The one thing I spoke to Greg about this week was getting himself some additional help. We've been funding, the possibility of a position in the budget, and we've gotten to that point where he does need some help. He's doing the fire inspections, he's got Butterfield, and he's got all the regular permits, and from these dollar amounts, you can see that things are pretty active. So I'm urging him to get an assistant to lighten the load there, to at least handle the fire inspections and be able to get to everything in a week that he needs to get to.
I know we spoke to him in the past, and it came up, and then he didn't think he needed it, but obviously he
At
needs
this
some more
point-
additional help.
At this
There's
point,
no question about it.
He definitely does.
Yeah, and taking on the village as well.
Yeah, so I also spoke to the village mayor about it, and, it looks like we'll be receiving excess funds from the village because of the Butterfield project, and you can see the uptick in the village activity, and I certainly think that's about the Butterfield project, but there's a lot going on over there and a lot of inspections happening, so it's gonna take time. All right. As far as workshops, I'm not gonna schedule anything right now unless somebody has something pressing. The one thing I received here is I'm going to send a letter of support for a grant that the Village of Nelsonville is applying for. We're happy to support the village, and that's all. I'll sign this and get this out to them. We'll get it on our stationery, get it out to them tomorrow. And then I'll be signing the environmental assessment form, the hold harmless agreement, and handing those off to Teresa. So we'll be all set. Anything else from the town board?
Yeah, on April 17th, Climate Smart Coordinator Roberto Bowler and myself went over to the Kent Town Hall to discuss with the Conservation Advisory Committee. They asked us to come over. Basically, we discussed the Climate Smart program. From the standpoint of Roberto, covered the current issues, the grants and issues, the methodical issues that you have to go through. I discussed how green was my town, which was handled by some members of this board prior to myself, and subsequently from that. Also, I wanted to provide them the ability to see that our town board supports the Climate Smart program in this town. It isn't just run by other people as well. We had a very good discussion, and we made it clear to them as well that we hope to be able to go to other towns in Putnam County, along with the village of Brewster, and eventually to Putnam County itself. Because if you take a look at Ulster County, the fact that they've joined all of the towns and obviously the city of Kingston, but also Ulster County itself, they are so much ahead of us because they have a combined effort there in the entire county. It makes such a difference. So hopefully we can convince other towns in Putnam to continue with that. The other thing too I wanted to mention is part of the fact that we were going to evaluate Upland Drive. The wetlands inspector, the highway superintendent, and myself drove that whole complex. And some of the road, I don't even want to call it that. It's extremely dangerous in one section. And it's so bad that it's not just nighttime, but if you were to come down a hill, there's big gullies on the side. You couldn't possibly back up. You're forced to go through this, which for many vehicles, it would definitely damage the vehicle severely, or they'd have to be towed out. Because of that, discussions with Carl on it, our initial feeling is there's an awful lot of work that would be required there before we could really consider development or any kind of assistance there. It's just, I really was very surprised at how bad it was. I really expected that maybe that some things were done in the middle part of the road to make it more attractive for us to consider more, but I think it should be closed. That's how bad it is. Somebody could severely be hurt there. That's how.
Is there any residents that
There's
need to go
a
through that?
house there that has a truck that has huge chains on his tires and snow tires. I mean, it must be terrible to get in and out of there. I would never recommend an ambulance go down there. I think we could
This is a
severely
private
damage
road,
the
right?
ambulance.
Well, they know which side to approach from. If
Yeah,
there is a call.
well, it's that house, and it can get really bad there. They might have to go on foot, because I don't think they could drive across, because it's very swampy there. I don't think they could visit. Fire truck, yeah, but I mean, an ambulance, I think it would be dangerous for them. That's how bad it is there.
Yeah, it's one of the issues in Continental Village, that it was a summer community entirely. There were no permanent residences there.
I mean,
The
it's-
entire water system was shut down during the winter, so it was a bungalow community, and now it's not, so it's growing pains. But we haven't received any petition information from the residents,
Right,
nothing.
but they had called and asked, and they saw me on the road prior, and I told them we would take a look at it. And I really kind of expected the middle part to be better than it was, because I remember originally it was bad. This was far worse.
Well, the pictures he brought that night were pretty bad.
Yeah, so, yeah, and I think it's worse than that now, personally.
Well, it probably has. It's a lot of rain since then.
Anything else from the board?
I just want to thank anybody who gave blood today, to give the blood. We had a blood drive in the Our Lady of Loretto Church today. I gave blood myself, but this time of year, it's very important that the blood supply is very low in the whole United States this time of year. So I appreciate anyone who did give blood. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Anything from the audience?
I got one more thing. Don't forget, we got the Memorial Day Parade coming up. The 20. Well, we'll have another meeting before then. Oh, no, we won't. No, we won't. But anyway, we have the meeting the 27th, 8:30. Meet at the village
Along
office.
those lines, I'd like to replace the flag out front, because it's getting pretty weathered. I'll talk to the VFW about purchasing another flag.
All right. I think we can afford that.
Yeah.
You're not an audience member.
Oh,
Great.
the Memorial Day Parade is Monday, the 27th.
It's on Memorial Day.
I think Liz-
Crazy. Yes, Liz?
You guys first passed a moratorium on vape shops about a year ago. So
Mhm.
is there any particular reason it's taking so long to get a permanent law drafted and adopted, or not adopted, but, before the public anyway?
Just hasn't risen to the top of the priority list yet. But I'm sure it will in the next month. Yes, Nancy.
I just wanted to say thank you to Mike and Roberto for bringing climate smart communities to Kent. And As you know, it's something that I brought to the county and have been trying for 3 months to move it to the full legislature. It's been before committee for 3 months. We've been talking about it. Honestly, I can't understand why it hasn't moved forward. Basically, I just want to take the pledge, and I appreciate Philipstown setting the example and bringing it to other communities in Putnam County, and I hope to do the same. And I think to speak to the vape shops, in the research that I did and research the law itself, there's no laws like it, so I think it's been kind of difficult to develop this law.
Yeah, you can't ban them. You just
Yeah,
have to.
and
It's like our law for adult bookshops, which is sort of antiquated at this point, but
yeah.
you can zone them.
I
to
know
a
our attorney, the
location.
town attorney, likes to see a precedent for it, and we haven't seen one yet, and I don't think any other municipalities.
Yeah, we had one in Main Street. It lasted about 6 months.
Right.
And,
So that I think that's sort of the holdup too.
yeah.
So thanks.
All right. I do want to recognize a Nelsonville Village Board, I believe, member here, Dove. So congratulations and welcome to the grand world of Philipstown politics and Nelsonville politics. How's your new office? Everything settling in okay? Good.
I think I speak for the entire board to say that we just really look forward to working with you collaboratively in the next couple of years.
Well, that'll be different. Okay, vacancies. We have one vacancy on the Rec Commission, but I guess we're going to do an interview. Or they're going to do an interview? Yeah.
Yes, they couldn't schedule it this week, but soon there will be an
Okay.
interview.
Approval of vouchers, general.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Highway.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Continental Village Park District.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Continental Village Water District.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Call it quits.